Just form a fucking wall.
O'Neal deep in the post, lots of contact there. Oh, what a block by Wallace! What a jump ball!
Pistons down 4, 12-8, 7:38 to play in the first. A burst from Rodney, stuck into the rim. Count that baby and a foul. Reggie inside for Andre and a dynamite dunk.
Pistons fans, hello and welcome to another edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast. Brendan Johnson, Aaron Johnson, and Ryan Paye all here with you this week to talk about, well, just those glorious Detroit Pistons. Boys, what's going on this week? We ready to dive into it?
I'm ready. We got some good topics this week. There's not a lot, to talk about currently with the Pistons, but we were able to come up with some good topics. This is going to be a fun show. And I'm just happy that Ryan's back because last week was tough without Ryan.
It's good to be back. I don't know who gets the flu twice in a month. Me, I guess. But, good to be back. Glad to be here. Seriously, who gets the flu twice in a month?
That's a tough draw. I don't know if that's tougher, though, than sticking me with Brendan and just Brendan for a full episode. But it's tough.
I don't think so. But at the same time, I've had the flu like twice in my entire life. And then twice in a month.
Hey man,
how does that happen?
You're just being tested, just like Christian Wood continues to be tested by Dwane Casey each and every game.
Oh wow,
with his lack of trust. But I guess that's letting it out right away.
What a segue comparison there. My goodness.
I'll let Brendan take back over. Sorry
okay,
about
Brendan.
That one.
All right then.
I've got nothing really to say. I just
it is depressing though. It is depressing.
I just wanted to point it out. I don't know. Just, hey. Go ahead, Brendan.
So, anyways.
Get the show started, Brendan.
Anyways, rumors have circulated that Spencer Dinwiddie was mentioned in trade conversations at the trade deadline. And the Detroit Pistons were one of those teams that were interested in making a trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, Dinwiddie has, said probably numerous times, hey, I've got no interest in going back to Detroit. Even though that's the team that drafted him, doesn't really have an interest in returning. But interesting that the Pistons had an interest in trading for Dinwiddie at this previous trade deadline. And, of course, no move was made as Dinwiddie remains with the Nets.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure what the Pistons' mindset really was with that thought process. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. He's an underrated basketball player, a borderline all-star when he's given the opportunity to start and play big-time minutes. But I don't know what it is with this team and point guards, but they just got this fascination with being interested and wanting 10 different point guards on the roster. It's really confusing. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. Again, I think he's a good player, can score, can facilitate, has good size, and I'm very much of the belief that the Pistons made a huge mistake giving up on him years ago when they did. Obviously, this is a new front office now. It's a new coaching staff. I get all of that. But when you look at this team and you look at their trajectory, Spencer Dinwiddie, just like Fred VanVleet, which we've talked about before, really doesn't fit the timeline of where this team is headed, especially when the Pistons are set to have one of the top picks in the 2020 draft, which is a draft class full of point guards that are top 1, top 3, top 5 lottery projected. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And this is one of those things that I feel it's not just something that's going to go away now. There was just interest at the deadline. The Nets are a team that their future is kind of interesting. They have Kyrie Irving, they have Kevin Durant, they have DeAndre Jordan, and everyone else is kind of fair game. The only reason DeAndre Jordan is safe is because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are big friends with him, and that was part of the arrangement was they would come if they could bring DeAndre Jordan with them. But pretty much everyone else in that roster is fair game. They're up for trades. They're available in the market. And, this is something that I could definitely see the Pistons coming back at and circle back in July and say, or maybe even, the end of June, before the draft or whatever, and come back to the Nets and say, hey, what's your stance on Dinwiddie right now? What do you want for him? What is it going to take? I think that there could still very much be an interest in Dinwiddie beyond just this season. I mean, hey, that's obviously why you would want to trade for a guy. It's never just a half a season deal in most cases, especially with a guy like Dinwiddie who still has multiple years left on his contract. It's an interesting situation. I don't think the Pistons should be looking at Dinwiddie as much as I like him, but they are. And I don't know what that says, if that exactly breeds confidence in the front office when they're looking at trading for a guy that doesn't fit the timeline of where they're headed. It's interesting. I'll leave that one right there.
When I saw it on Twitter, I thought it was a Twitter prank at first. I thought it was a Twitter prank. Because of all the times we've seen, honestly, Dinwiddie on Twitter say he's not coming back to Detroit. He never would. And so I was like, oh, we're just being pranked. But then it was real because, the Twitter handle checked out. And like you said, Aaron, it's a little confusing that I like Dinwiddie just like you like Dinwiddie. I'm pretty sure everyone in Detroit likes Dinwiddie. It doesn't seem to fit the mold of, hey, we're rebuilding, we're trying to build this thing back up. This is the timeline. Going after Spencer Dinwiddie doesn't fit the timeline like you said. So it's confusing. I'm not sure what it says. It tells me they're still interested. Like you said, they're interested in him in the long run. So they're probably going to make that call again in the offseason. Why?
Because this team is hell-bent on trying to put together a winning roster. Ed Stefanski is dead set on reloading, in a sense, for next season. I'm very firmly in the belief of that being the case.
I can't get down with that.
I can't either.
Can't get down with that.
I can't either. It doesn't make sense. Your team had their chance last season and this season. And last season, you backed into the 8th seed, got swept in the first round. And this year, yes, you had terrible injury luck. But the rest of the team folded. No one stepped up high enough to keep you afloat. And unfortunately, you put together a team that was injury prone. You knew going into the season that was the risk you were taking. So are they really about to walk it back and go get a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, who, one, doesn't want to be here, or at least has said he doesn't want to be here, which I don't have any issues with him not wanting to be here considering how his time went here. And two, you are not going to put together a roster that is capable of winning in an offseason. When Blake is, going to resume basketball activities in June, so you'll have him. But outside of that, the rest of your roster is kind of in flux. You've had issues with Luke Kennard, Christian Wood's an unrestricted free agent, and the rest of your roster, they're going to keep Derrick Rose, and then they'll have Svi Mykhailiuk. What else? Tony Snell is not a guy that's going to help you get to the playoffs.
Right.
He's a fine player. He's not going to help you get to the playoffs. Not to the point where he is a ceiling raiser or anything like that. He's a fine basketball player. So for them to be interested in Dinwiddie, it shows that they are still interested, and not just interested to the point where it's a pipe dream, it's something that'd be nice. They're interested in the point where they're willing to part with assets that would benefit them in the future to try to put together a winning team right now. Because there's no way you're getting Dinwiddie for pennies on the dollar or anything like that. He's a good player, and he's on a pretty decent contract. There is no situation where you walk away with Dinwiddie in some bargain deal. So, to me, this is one of those situations where the front office is showing their cards, and they're saying, look, we want to improve our roster for next season. We're still in this with Blake Griffin and Luke Kennard and whatever else we're able to scrounge together, and we're going to try to go play in the playoffs.
That sounds so terrible.
And
that sounds so terrible.
One more thing on that. They're going to go out and get another point guard when they've already acted like Derrick Rose is their most valuable player. It's just another compounding move that doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. Again, like Dinwiddie, he's a good player. but this team has no business trying to trade for him when they are on the timeline that they are on.
It just doesn't add up. And you just start to ask yourself, like, how do these guys get NBA executive positions? And why does a guy like Tom Gores own an NBA franchise if he's going to make these kind of decisions that are really just bonehead decisions? You know? It's just mind-boggling to me. Like, you sold off Dre, you bought out Reggie, you bought out Markieff. Like, just take a 2-year... It really will take 2 seasons, giving Sekou 2 more years in the league to develop. That allows you to maybe get 1 or 2 really high draft picks in addition to what should be a decent draft pick this year. And now you've got 2 or 3 young draft picks to pair with Sekou, your pick from last year, Luke Kennard. Where does V end up? And Bruce Brown and Christian Wood. Yes, you'll have some money to maybe make a play on some other small free agents that build out some depth or positional upgrades for you within the roster. And by year 3, then with a nice young core and a nucleus of guys that can compete for a long time at a higher level, you should be able to go make a real run in the playoffs. A real run in the Eastern Conference. But what's the point of trying to go after it next year? Because you're not better. You won't be better than the top 4 teams that are in the Eastern Conference right now. So again, you'd be playing for a ceiling of a 5 seed. And likely a first round exit.
$33 million. It's worrisome that the Pistons have that kind of money at their hands in the offseason.
Because here's the other thing. And we're going to talk. I don't want to jump too far ahead. We still got to talk about free agency, and that'll be our next topic. Okay, and some guys that the Pistons could target. But the philosophy should really be simple. You've got a lot of money you're going to have available this offseason. I have thoughts on, and I think we might all be in agreement here of where you're going to really place that money. I don't see us all differing too much on that. Because at the end of the day, if the Pistons are going to become players in free agency, like real players in free agency, it's not going to be this offseason. It's going to be next. And it's going to take 2 max slots available. Because free agents love the idea of being able to go and pair up with a buddy of theirs or somebody they think they can win with. And that's the way the Pistons are going to be able to attract a big name. They are not just going to land a big name free agent. We know this. That is not new. The only way you attract a strong free agent is if he's able to convince somebody else to come to Detroit, pair up with what they currently have, and see that as a place to win. Going out and risking everything and losing that to try to compete for a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 seed next year, I thought Tom Gores said just making the playoffs wasn't good enough. And this roster will not be good enough to win anything in the playoffs without major upgrades. So what are we doing?
Well, first things first, I think we've got to understand anything Tom Gores says is just lip service.
Which is unfortunately true.
He wants to win. I mean, everyone wants to win.
Yeah, he wants to win now.
He wants to win. Just making the playoffs is good enough for him.
Yeah.
Everything about, hey, maybe we need to rebuild or whatever it is, lip service. We know what he's trying to do. Mm-hmm. It's been very apparent since the day he's gotten here what he wants to do.
Right.
So, it's frustrating. I appreciate your anger because I feel the same way about it. What are we doing? We're doing nothing. We're in limbo. That's where we're at. That's what we're doing. Nothing. Stupidity. Idiocracy. That's where we're at as a franchise right now.
And it should be really a time of optimism for Pistons fans. Because you could be closing in on a top 5 pick. You have the potential to close in on a top 5 pick. And you're going to have some money available this offseason, which at this point, we should probably continue to progress through the podcast here and look at some free agents that'll be available for Detroit. And one thing, and we talked about this before we started the podcast, and I know Aaron's got a few names of guys that you could look into. The Pistons might be able to sign, get some friendly deals, things of that nature. But to me, there's only one guy you're going to throw real money at, and you're going to force New Orleans to match a max offer to Brandon Ingram. You're going to throw that offer out there.
And I think this whole table here is in agreement about that.
Yeah.
I think that is an absolute must. Brandon Ingram's not going anywhere. He's staying in New Orleans.
100%.
But you have to force New Orleans' hand.
So then...
You have to.
So then, let's say he doesn't take it, okay? If he does not... Let's say he doesn't come to the Pistons, which is like 99% the case, right? You spend your money to just fill some needs, short deals, maybe even some one-year deals, and fill out your roster, get through next year, play your youth, sit on some cap. That way, when it comes to next offseason, maybe you find a way to move a Blake Griffin. You find a way to free up enough money to have 2 max slots available. And then you can go make a real play. And you can make that play based off of how you've drafted this year and how you draft next. And you can draft according to what free agents you're targeting. That's got to be, to me, that is the logical plan for Detroit. This whole, they're going to try to compete next year. They're going to try to win with Blake Griffin. It's done. It's done. Stop it. It's done. And it's just really, really frustrating. Because the thing is, it's like, people will... there's not a lot of people that are left in the Detroit Pistons corner in terms of that fan base. That fan base is weak right now because they're not an exciting product. But there is that group that have stuck by and supported this team and hung through the good, the bad, and well, for a lot of these guys, I mean, let's be real. A lot of the fans in the Pistons corner right now are kids that do not remember the 2004 championship or maybe barely remember it. Most of the current Pistons fans have not seen a winning product in their lifetime. Just a fact. The majority of the Pistons fan base that is active has not seen Detroit win a playoff series. Or at least remember seeing them do it.
The role of the Pistons in free agency this summer should be none other than what the Brooklyn Nets did seasons ago.
Can I just finish what my point was, though?
Okay, I didn't know.
I just want to finish
Go
that
ahead.
point. Of those young fans, if you go out and you don't play these young kids, and a guy like Svi ends up on the bench, or Sekou doesn't have tremendous flexibility and room to grow next year, they will walk away too. And your door will close. Because you will not win next year trying to gather some free agents and put a bullshit roster together. Sorry. So I just wanted to finish that point of people. That door's barely open. That one will close too.
The Brooklyn Nets, circa 2016, played the role of making other teams pay money. That is what the Pistons should be doing. They should be going after restricted free agents, signing them to contracts so that other teams have to match. Brandon Ingram is the number one option. Max Brandon Ingram, make the Pelicans match, and if the Pelicans don't match and you're able to come away with Brandon Ingram, then great.
That's a huge win.
It's great because the difference between getting a guy that can help you win now in Brandon Ingram and getting a guy that can help you win now in Spencer Dinwiddie is Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be 27 at the end of the season. Brandon Ingram's currently 23 years old. That's a 3-4 year difference that fits your timeline. Brandon Ingram's then a guy that can help lead some of the youth. And he's right there with a Bruce Brown and Luke Kennard in age. Sekou's going to be young. Like, that's just how Sekou is right now. He's the youngest player in the NBA. He's going to be very young next year. Like, that's what he is right now. Ingram fits that timeline. Dinwiddie doesn't. There's other free agents that the Pistons can go after. One of them that's unrestricted and would actually fill a need for the Pistons is Harry Giles. He's unrestricted at the end of the year. He's not been given a big enough role in Sacramento. That's a guy that you can play behind Christian Wood. You can play alongside Christian Wood. He's a very young player. He's still a big-time athlete after going through numerous injuries at Duke and in the NBA. That's a guy that the Pistons should absolutely, on day one, be going after. He's going to be 22 years old. He's only averaged 15 minutes per game this season. Like, that is a guy that, one, isn't going to get a big payday, so you're not going to have to pay him, $10 million per year.
What is his value?
Probably, I would say you go out and you offer him $7 million. It might be a slight overpay, but you have the money right now. Sign him to a 2-year, 3-year deal. I mean, look, I'm just thinking of Stan Van Gundy signed Langston Galloway to a 3-year, $7 million contract. So we ended up paying him 3 years, $21 million over 3 years. I would be very much okay paying $21 million over 3 years to a 22-year-old that has promise. Mm-hmm. Another guy that the Pistons should be looking at is Frank Jackson. He's just 22 years old. It's another Pelican, and really there's multiple other Pelicans that you can look at. Kenrick Williams, another guy that's going to be a restricted free agent, a combo forward that you could nab away from them, but he's not. Neither of those guys, but I'm going to talk about Frank Jackson specifically here, are going to be high on New Orleans' priority list to handle and to deal with monetarily wise. Those are guys that should be easy to take away from them, easy to steal away from them. And if the Pistons, for some reason, don't draft a point guard and don't draft Killian Hayes, because I'm going to continue to say it every week.
Killian Hayes.
You have to draft Killian Hayes. If they don't do that for some reason, Frank Jackson should be the guy that they go after in free agency as a young guard to bring into the system. He just hasn't been given the opportunity in New Orleans. And funny enough, it's another Duke guy, but it's I'm basically filled out the entire Pistons roster as a pseudo Duke team. But it's just a guy that can play, he can shoot, he can attack the rim. I like him, and I'm surprised that, I get New Orleans has so many guys that deserve minutes. I'm just surprised Jackson hasn't been given an opportunity to consistently play. So that's why I think he's a guy that you're going to be able to nab. And Kenrick Williams is another guy from New Orleans, combo forward, 6'7", 6'8", can shoot, can defend at multiple spots. That's a guy that I would like the Pistons to go after as well. There's plenty of guys that I can continue to talk about, but in summary, the Pistons should be going after young players, restricted free agents that they can either force other teams to have to pay big money to so they lock in their cap space, or the Pistons can get and make the most out of.
And real quick, if the Pistons have the opportunity to draft Killian Hayes and they don't, I think my heart will stop. I think that'll send me into just shock. I'm sure of it. I am so sold on Killian Hayes. I used to be a big Denny guy. Still very much enjoy Denny Avia, but my God, I'm 100% sold on Killian.
Killian is my one, and honestly, I get the Anthony Edwards hype. I get Tyrese Maxey. I get the USC center that I can't say his name, but Denny's number 2 on my board. It's Killian Hayes, and then it's Denny, and then it's probably Anthony Edwards, and then after that, it can be debated. Yeah. But those are 2 guys that I just really like, and Denny's been playing so well lately. The shot has figured, it looks like it's there.
Something he said, and something I've talked about with you guys in all his interviews, has always been, confidence is a little bit of a problem for me. When I do find my confidence, though, I am a much better player, and all his teammates agree. And they've even said, when he finds his confidence, watch out, this kid is a freak. And it is showing now. That being said, I'm still on the Killian Hayes train.
Yes.
But Killian and Denny, those 2 guys, if Killian's gone and they don't take Denny, I'll cry. If Killian's there and they don't take him, I'll cry. But anyway, back to this free agent talk. I just need to sneak that in there with you. This offseason is so complex. Because it sets up the 2021 offseason. Mm-hmm. The Pistons have a lot of cap space. Sure. So you're going to be spending money on Christian Wood, right?
Right.
You're planning on bringing him back, right? Well, what's his value? Do I think his value is probably $8.5 to $10 million right now because he doesn't have a long track record of doing what he's doing in the league? Yes. But were there a plethora of teams calling for him at the trade deadline? Yes. He's an unrestricted free agent, which means teams are going to be throwing money at him. So his value is probably going to shoot up to 11, 12, 13. I can see that happening. So then you have to ask yourself, does he even want to be here? He doesn't have to stick around. He's not restricted. Does he enjoy playing for Dwane Casey? I don't know. We see how everything fluctuates with him so much. He should be a stalwart in that starting lineup. And I get, at the end of the day, it's just about the minutes, really. But he shouldn't be coming in off the bench and this, that, and the other thing. He should be a consistent piece in the starting lineup.
It's kind of different when you're on a good team.
Yes.
When you are literally probably the worst team in the league right now, roster-wise.
And you're the player. Right now, he is the player.
And you are coming off the bench behind Thon Maker and John Henson. Come on.
Even if he is getting the 34, 35 minutes a game, that still messes with your mind. Like, why am I not... Like, there's just... not a prestige. Maybe a prestige. I don't know what...
There is a prestige.
There's just something to it. It means something.
Right.
He is the guy. He should be starting every game.
100%.
So does he even want to be here? And then you got to figure how much money are you going to have to throw at him. Okay. And then next up, what are you doing with Luke Kennard? Extension time's coming up. Yeah, right. You have this cap space, but he's a $15, $16 million player. He's not some $5.5 to $7 million player. He's a real player, a real threat. Are you paying him? And if so, you got to think about that. That money's got to go. Or are you trading him? Do you want to throw money at a guy like a Harry Giles? I'm okay with that. But you got to think about what you're doing with those other two first before you even consider that. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be a player in the 2021 free agent class?
And that's
Do
what
you
it
want to
comes
have
down
those
to.
max spots? What's your plan in the draft? Because that can determine so much of what you do in free agency. It's so complex. And I think a big thing, which Aaron talked about, is forcing teams to pay players like the Nets did. Go after, throw the money at those restricted free agents, making other teams make plays for them. Or their team make a play for that player. I'm all for that. The Pistons need to make that type of move. And of course, if they don't do it, they need to be shipped to the moon, throw all the money at Brandon Ingram. Because no, he's not going to sign here. New Orleans is going to match for him. But on the very, very off chance that they don't, Brandon Ingram is a star. He's going to be a star. He fits the timeline. He is a great fit. I love Brandon Ingram.
We've signed like 3 Duke players to the Pistons roster. Frank Jackson, Brandon Ingram, Harry Giles.
Take them all.
You got Luke Kennard.
I'm a Dookie.
Do we have a top 5 Duke player in the draft? No, I don't think so this year.
No. Do we need to get back into the mid first to go get Vernon Carey? He had a tough end of the game yesterday against Virginia. Ugh. But anyway, it's so complex. Are they going to spend the money? Or are they going to give it to guys who are older veterans, 1-year deals, try to maneuver, force teams to pay players? Because they've got some things they've got to figure out on their own roster.
Well, and I think, and you guys both mentioned it, the Blake Griffin contract is something that has to be talked about here too. He's got a player option for the 2021 offseason. If you could trade him, that opens up money for next year that you can still spend money this year.
Yes. Great point. But at the same time, who's taking Blake Griffin right now?
Right. You know, I think if you are able to move him this offseason, which I'm not convinced you are, even for matching salary, you know, on expiring contracts, I'm not sure that the Pistons could even do that. When you look at the season that Blake had, in the 12 games he played, and you look at how he was injured at the end of the 2018-2019 season, and then obviously has missed the rest of this year, how do you buy into taking a guy on for $34 million next year, and then the likelihood of having him on another $34 million or 38, whatever it is?
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was
30-something million dollars for another year. I don't even know if you can get someone to just send you expirings for that.
That's legitimately it.
Unless you get Portland desperate.
Right. You can't ask for any sort of asset, I don't think, in a Blake Griffin trade. The best you can do is getting expiring matching salary. So you have a ton of free room in 2021. I think that's the very best you can do right now without Blake Griffin proving himself that he's able to come back and play after this injury.
So now the front office
And
that
can't happen.
that is dead set on trying to win has to ask themselves that question. And it might be the right move to move on from Griffin and say, look, we appreciate what you did here. We were on the verge of doing something, but it didn't work. And now we have to move on, and we want to put you somewhere that you can try to win. And, you are able to get back expirings. Maybe that is the right move. I don't trust the front office to make that move, though.
I don't either, and I don't even know if they can pull that off. To be honest, I'm not even talking about the front office. I don't even know if that can happen right now with how much money Blake Griffin will cost the team,
right?
Compared to what can he even do anymore. We just don't know,
right?
And it's not like he's 27 coming off these knee issues, 31 coming off these knee issues that he's had his whole career.
I'm okay with holding on to Griffin. I've said that I'm okay with him being the Kevin Love of your rebuild, hopefully without all the issues and the pettiness and whatnot.
Hey, he just straps you so bad.
But that's the thing. He straps you for another 2 years.
And
because
it's not
you want to have the money to bring back Wood and re-sign Kennard. But then it's like, we really can't do anything else until Griffin's done.
Right. Because what if on the very, 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 very off chance, this is a huge what if, it's almost not even worth bringing up, you are able to get Brandon Ingram. He does come. Well, you need... The reason he would agree to that, outside of being... is because you're telling him, yes, we can bring in another guy when we get the free cap space. So I think you're clearly looking to move on from Blake Griffin at that point.
Yeah.
But can you even? Probably not.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. It's
unless you're able to get a player... You're able to get a player to buy into Griffin's going to come back healthy.
And I don't think you're getting that.
I don't think that's out there. And I don't think Blake is... I mean, we saw it last year. Blake said he recruited 3 guys. He went over 3. I don't think Blake's going to have that. He doesn't have that pull to recruit a guy here.
No.
So you're not going to be able to recruit someone, and then I don't think you're going to be able to get someone that wants.
I don't know if it's that Blake doesn't have the pull. I think guys love Blake, and I think they saw that. Hey, Blake is a player. I think they saw the roster around him, and can Blake and I work together to make this all work? I think that's what they saw, right. And I think that's why Blake went 0 for 3. Because I don't think it's Detroit. There's this huge, huge, huge narrative that Detroit's a miserable place to be. Is it a free agent destination? No. But it's not some hole-in-the-wall scum crap town that no one wants to come to. People will come here.
Absolutely.
They will play here. But you have to give them the money, and there has to be a decent reason. Just like every other smaller market town. It's not like, oh my God, Detroit, kill me. There's that narrative out there, and that's such a crazy narrative.
It's not like doomsday.
He didn't go 0 for 3 because, why would I want to go to Detroit? He went not 0 for 3 because Blake Griffin has no pull. He went 0 for 3 because of the roster around Blake Griffin. I think players saw the writing on the wall that this is not a winning circumstance. Too many injury-prone guys. Not guys who don't know how to win, because they really didn't know how to win, because they've never been there before outside of Blake Griffin, having any sort of success in the playoffs. Not that Blake's had a ton of success in the playoffs, which is kind of shocking when you look back at it in retrospect. I think that's where the 0 for 3 comes from.
And then, you kind of look at, you have other people have the conversations privately that involve comments like Fred VanVleet made about Dwane Casey. And that, while he was in Toronto, there was a lot more arguing. There was a lot more... It was a lot more condensed. He was a little more stubborn. Dwane Casey's kind of stuck in his ways. You're going to do it the way he wants you to do it. Whereas now you see Toronto flourishing, and you see guys, you look at a roster, you're like, Toronto's got some pieces, but how are they playing this good? And it's because, Nick Nurse is allowing them to experiment a little bit, to let them be free-flowing, to give them some room. You got to give your guys some rope. You got to let them play a little
They're professionals. You have to.
It's just, you're seeing that's even apparent, at the college level, let alone the professional level. More than people probably know, that's starting to hit the high school level, where you've got to start giving players some rope if you're actually going to let them buy into playing for you. You can't try to just contain everything they do. So, with Dwane Casey maybe being a little bit more stubborn and trying to limit the creativity and the free flow, just style of play. Now they're doing it. They're flourishing. It brings up the question: do free agents want to sign in Detroit to play for Dwane Casey? And let's say it's not a free agent's approach, but it's hey, we are in rebuild mode, and they decide to go out and blow it up and rebuild. Is Dwane Casey the right coach for a rebuild? Is he the right coach for the Pistons?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. And those Fred VanVleet comments certainly make it a little bit tougher to analyze. I've always been in favor of Dwane Casey. And I know even in his first year last year, he got a lot of criticism from certain sects and was critiqued pretty hard. But I was steadfast in every coach does something that you're not going to like. It happens everywhere with even the best coaches. Greg Popovich, Nick Nurse, Steve Kerr, all of them. But this year has been an utter train wreck. Whether it was starting the season with Luke Kennard coming off the bench, the way he's handled Derrick Rose, the way he's handled Christian Wood, the way that he handled Sekou Doumbouya, everywhere Dwane Casey has made mistakes. And that's just looking at playing time. Let's also talk about the fact that this team, throughout this entire season, has been unable to look coherent offensively, has been downright dreadful at times on the defensive end. And Dwane Casey was supposed to at least make sure this team was good defensively. And they just look like they don't run an offense at times. Like they just genuinely at times look like they are not running an NBA level offense. Mm-hmm. And then you hear these comments from a guy that began to break out under Dwane Casey, but once he left, fully broke out in Fred VanVleet. And you hear how when Dwane Casey was here, there was a lot more arguing. There wasn't a lot of players being allowed to, speak their mind and give their thoughts. It was a lot of arguing. There wasn't harmony. Like, you hear that, and then you connect it with, well, look at these comments he's made about Christian Wood and Sekou Doumbouya, two of the young cornerstone pieces for the Pistons. Look at how he's run Derrick Rose into the ground trying to win ball games. Look at how he used Blake Griffin as soon as he came back from injury to start the year, immediately giving him the ball and ISOing him and going back to last year's offense. You just have to look at those things, and when you add them all together, doesn't that concern you?
Big time.
Because it concerns me a lot.
Big time.
But then on the flip side, you have to go out there and you have to say, if Dwane Casey's a problem, we got to move on from Dwane Casey. Fine. Who are we going to get? Because there's not going to be a John Beilein. He's not getting back into NBA coaching. He's in an advisory role with the Cavs.
I want to add, I feel really bad for John Beilein. And as a Michigan State basketball fan, I think you guys know that I always gave Beilein a lot of praise and credit. And I always really respected him while he was coaching in Michigan. And I was really happy for him to get a chance to go to the NBA and do it. And I feel really bad for the way that he was just kind of forced out. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But just to know how poorly that went, and to be bad enough that he had to resign from his coaching position middle of the season and couldn't even just finish out 1 year and decide to step away. I feel bad for him. I just got to put that out there again. I might have even said that last week, but I do. I feel bad for him.
So you don't get, there's no college coach coming to the NBA, and you've missed out on, any of these other coaches that have come into the league as of late. Your best option is probably, that I can think of right now, a guy that you talked to back when you were interviewing Dwane Casey, is Ime Udoka from the San Antonio Spurs. Or did he leave? Did he leave the Spurs?
Honestly, I don't even know where he's at right now.
I think maybe did he join the Sixers? Yeah, he did join the Sixers. So
fair enough. I didn't even know.
But that's maybe your best bet is getting Ime Udoka in your head coaching position. I mean, maybe there's some other names that become available, or say they want to get into the NBA, or there's a former coach that wants to come back. But you have to figure that out too. You have to say, yes, Dwane Casey has his faults, but we also have to have an option to replace him. And that's where I'm kind of curious where this goes. I don't think the Pistons will move on from Dwane Casey. I really don't. I think he's here, and he's here throughout his contract, win or lose. But in the scenario that they did move on, you have to remember that you also have to find a replacement. You also have to find a guy that you think can come in with a team that will have lost their head coach and be able to galvanize that locker room and be the leader of that locker room.
Right.
So that's kind of where my head is at on that situation.
I don't think Dwane Casey's going anywhere. Honestly, I don't think there's a chance he's going anywhere. It's a win-win for him. He can't lose. Maybe Goris does want to win, but he put those public comments out there publicly that, hey, maybe it's time for a different direction. So either way, they win, great. They lose, great. Dwane Casey is here throughout his contract, unless he decides he wants to step away. I don't see Goris and Stefanski letting him go. And you're right, Aaron. What if they do let him go? Well, you have to have a plan in place. And I don't know what that plan is or who that plan would be. I don't at this point. There just doesn't seem to be those names like there were a few years ago when Dwane Casey came here. There were those names out there. There really doesn't appear that way this year. Hey, it could change. The year's not over, obviously. But if you ask me, he's not going anywhere. Is he the right guy to lead this rebuild? It doesn't feel like it. Let me tell you. It really doesn't. But
it's not what he signed up for.
That is not what he signed up for.
And that has to be considered.
And I'm sure that's weighing on his mind too.
Yeah.
He came here to try to win again.
So I get that. But at the same time, you've gone out and you've made some very questionable decisions.
Yes.
With guys that...
Can I cut you off real quick?
Yeah.
Here's the thing that's really bothering me, more than the Christian Wood stuff, more than the Luke Kennard stuff, is this whole time Seku's been struggling, I've really been like, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I don't know what happened because nothing really changed, but the flip has switched on me. I am worried about it now. Like, people were all worried and confused and freaking out about it all over Twitter. I'm just sitting there like, don't worry, guys. It'll be okay. He's young. But I don't know. Now I'm kind of freaking out too.
Right.
Because Seku's an absolute ghost out there right now. They are doing nothing to help him. In the offense, he goes and stands in the corner. And that's it. That's all he does. It doesn't look like he's getting... All this experience and playing time means nothing if you're just going to stand in the corner. That's his role in the offense. Maybe come set a pick up top, run back to your corner. They don't even look at him. It's 5-on-4 when they're playing offense.
Which is just ridiculous because I'd love to see him be just a focal point. Let's see what he can do. And I mean, he's shown he can do it.
You see when there are times when he does start doing his own thing a little bit and freestyling and playing free-flowing, and he'll turn the ball over once or twice. He's young. It's going to happen. Or maybe he takes a bad shot. He's young. It's going to happen. He comes out of the game.
That's like such a high school thing. It's almost like it's literally like kind of like a high school.
It's not like this is a 45-win team right now.
No.
That's like battling for playoff position. It's like, what the hell are you doing, kid? You're costing us. This is a team that's playing for nothing. He's got to make those mistakes.
Right.
And I feel like when he makes a mistake or two, after like he gets one freebie if the game's early on, a second one, and Dwane Casey's on him, and then he just runs to his corner, and that's it. He's a ghost out there. A ghost. And he's a solid rebounder, but he's not even. He looks terrible right now rebounding.
To me, seeing the Sekou and the lack of Sekou on the offensive end is enough to tell me that Dwane Casey is no longer the guy that should be in Detroit. Maybe he was the right fit for a team that was trying to win, and you know what? They needed some coaching with a mix of young guys and veterans that between strategy and a focus on foundational system, that, hey, maybe Dwane Casey's the guy that will be able to put them in a position to win. He's a good coach. He's a proven playoff coach. This is not a knock that Dwane Casey is a bad basketball coach. And I don't want it to sound like that. But you're at a point right now where you need a guy that's going to come in and he's going to nurture some young kids. You need a guy that's going to nurture the young guys. Because that's where your team is. You're rebuilding with a young nucleus. Let's say you re-sign Christian Wood, you extend Luke Kennard, Sekou, Bruce Brown, Svi Mykhailiuk, even if that's the only 5, and that doesn't even mention guys like Jordan Bone, whoever else. You need a coach that's going to develop them and allow them to make mistakes and really grow. And Dwane Casey's probably a very good, showing you the strict foundation and trying to break bad habits. But in the style of play that we're at today, you've got to just let him run. This is not a crawl, walk, jog, run process anymore. This is you get to the league. If you're drafted like a guy like Sekou or Luke, you're expected to already be walking, and you just tell them start running. And they learn. And they figure it out. And you make the point, if this was a 45-win team, then yeah, you have more room to hone in on some things and really slow it down for them. And let them just walk while they watch others run. And really see the true form. But you're a 20-win basketball team. You're 20 and 41 or 20 and 42?
Yeah, whatever it is. It's
yeah. Why? Why are we slowing them down? Let them go. If they make mistakes, let them make mistakes. I think Dwane Casey is maybe trying a little too hard to win games with a bad roster and really imposition their draft status. Then let the young kids develop and be the focal point. Be the focal point. I said it a few weeks back. I got no problem if you have veterans on your roster giving them burn. I've got no problem riding out this year. I'm not saying that guys should suffer like Christian Wood should suffer. Christian Wood should start at center every night and play his minutes every night. But if you're going to put Langston in the mix or whatever, I got no problem with it through the end of this year. But then next year is supposed to be the year of all youth, letting them go, letting them learn, and giving them some freedom. And you know what? If they lose, that helps you for the draft, and it gives you plenty of film and opportunity to show why they lost and help them improve. And if somehow they win, well then, God bless America. I mean, come on, that's the whole point. So it just, if Dwane Casey is going to, in a sense, hold some of these young kids back, then it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work, because in a league where guys can just walk away, guys won't stay here. And you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose a guy like a Sekou. You don't want Christian Wood to walk away because he doesn't want to play for Dwane.
Which is very much in the realm of possibility this offseason.
It is.
And I don't know if that's being talked about enough. But
we don't know the psyche of Christian Wood. We don't know the relationship. We don't know the dynamic. But just in today's landscape, you can make some inferences that Christian Wood is the guy, and yet I get he's still getting his minutes, and that's what's most important. But he should be a stalwart in the starting lineup. He should never be coming off the bench behind Thon Maker.
No doubt.
And yet here we are. And he might take that as disrespect.
I wouldn't blame him if he walked.
And this day and age where players have the power, it's a players' league. All right, I'll see you later. I'll go to the next place that wants me.
Yep, that's how it works. And I hope that we're not too stubborn to see that.
Which,
So, yeah.
this
So
franchise.
that's where things stand. That's where we are. Boys, I don't know. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up for this week?
I think this was a good podcast. We talked about some good stuff. A lot of it trending towards next year.
Right.
But important stuff nonetheless, because the rest of this season, wins-wise, loss-wise, I mean, the losses matter. The wins don't. This is looking towards beyond.
Right.
Which is funny because last year we talked about this is the year. This current year being the year for the Pistons. It was all about next year, last year, and this was supposed to be the year that everything kind of really came together. But no, it's actually next year, folks. That's what matters.
And it'll probably be the year after that as well. So,
Well, yeah, and next year's not about winning. Next year's about losing.
No, next
positioning
year's
yourself, and
right.
developing.
It's making sure you have some foundation to your core assembled.
So, well, boys, nice job this week. Folks, thanks for sticking with us. Of course, the Pistons might be abysmal, but we're going to do our best to give you some quality content. With that being said, of course, continue to check out the website, palaceofpistons.com. You can find us online, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow the podcast. It's on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, Stitcher, you name it, it's there. So be sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button, that follow button, wherever you are keeping up with Palace of Pistons. So make sure you keep tabs. We'll keep doing the best to give you good content, despite how bad our Detroit Pistons really are. With that being said, have a great week, and we'll see you next time here on the Palace of Pistons Podcast.